Hello, everybody. My name is Jeff H. Malum, and welcome back to the fourth episode of the Being an Author podcast series. I want to tell you something, like some small things in advance before we start with today's topic that you can probably already read in the title, and if you can't, I will tell you in a couple of seconds. But first, I want to announce I've told you in another video, but I'm not sure if everybody watches every video. So to those who are watching or rather listening to the podcast, I want to tell you that I now do have a Patreon as well as a Goodreads account. Both of them are in the video description below, and if you are listening to this somewhere else, just go to the respective websites, Patreon and Goodreads, and search for Jeff H. Malum, or have a look at my blog, jeffmalum.com. You will find the links there as well. There was something else that I wanted to tell you, some minor announcement, but of course I already forgot. Oh, no, I just remembered. As soon as you see this episode going online, and you probably did if you're listening to it right now, I want to tell you that there are new and updated versions of Backfire 1 and Backfire 2, that is, Backfire in Solitude and Backfire 20 Hens. New editions of them are now online on Amazon, so if you do not yet own them, make sure to have a look and grab a copy. They have gone through some corrections, so mistakes have been dealt with, and the format has slightly changed, or even a little more than slightly. So content-wise, nothing has really changed. Nothing is new. But yeah, it's like a better version. If you already own a copy, of course you don't need to buy this new version. Instead, you should buy the third Backfire, which is Voices of Violence, or it's the extra one. Okay, so much about the introduction. Welcome to the actual episode now. Today's episode, this is the fourth one, if I'm not mistaken, and I'm talking a little about how to fight against an author's block, or how to deal with a writer's block. To those of you who don't really know what that is, basically, maybe you know this from, I don't know, from school or university times or whatever, when you had to like write homework or whatever, and you had to, write. Well, but at some point you just couldn't continue. If it was like how was it called? An essay, for example, and it had to be like, I don't know, 10 pages long. But at some point you suddenly just you had this blockade in your head. You just couldn't continue. And if you are doing some other kind of creative job, or just something like that in your free time, then perhaps you also know that if you're making music and you're currently writing a new EP or whatever, but then you just can't continue writing because, I don't know, your creativity is somehow blocked. And I think this is the case for every creative direction. But also for other things. But it is a very, very prominent one for authors or writers in any way. And also to me as well, of course. I have suffered through these blocks like 1,000 times, and it took me a while to deal with them. This is also one of the reasons why my first Backfire book, even though it is quite short and small, took over 10 years to finally be published. Of course, there were other reasons for that as well. for the publishing process and the cover creation and so on. But in the end, it took a long while to start writing or to keep writing at some points. And this is the case for everything I write, and every author knows that. So how to deal with that? First of all, I want to tell you that there is no solution that works for everybody. If you ask 10 authors about how they deal with such a block, you will probably get between 5 to 10 different answers. Probably actually 10 different answers, or maybe even some won't be able to give you answers at all. What's going on with my voice? And this is why I'm also very, very, very excited to know about you. So I will tell you about how I deal with these kinds of struggles, but I also really want to know how you do, because sometimes I cannot fight off such a block, and instead I make a break for quite a while, which is not the best way to do. So to fight against that. So I'd really also like to hear about your ways of fighting these struggles, and maybe I can learn from you as well. So how do I deal with such a problem? Well, you've already heard about the first option, which is the worst, but it sometimes happens to me. Actually, happens to me quite a lot, and that is taking a break. And taking a break does not really just mean pausing for 5 minutes or pausing for the rest of the evening and continue the next day. No, sadly, these kinds of breaks sometimes take forever. I remember that I think my longest break that I had to take for creative block reasons was like 1.5 years. I remember that must have been around, I think, 2016, if I'm not mistaken. It was terrible. I had a run, let's say like this. I wrote for evenings straight, hours straight, through the nights, did nothing else. And at some point, I came home, wanted to keep writing, and I don't know, it took me an hour to finish one sentence, and then I tried to write another sentence, and it was bad, and I deleted it, and then I rewrote it, and this whole process of writing 3 sentences, of which I deleted one, it took me like 2 or 3 hours, and then I realized, okay, I can't write today, and from this point on, I stopped for over a year, which was a long time for me. That was when I was writing the first chapters of 20 Hands. There was one chapter where I was just, I don't know, I didn't know how to keep going, and I had a similar problem with Voices of Violence, which I also wrote quite some time in advance. And there was this one specific scene, I think it was in the 3rd chapter. Yeah, at the end of the 3rd chapter in Voices of Violence, I just didn't know how to go on, and it took me, again, almost 6 months to continue. So yeah, taking a break helps. It definitely does, as soon as you are willing to get back to it at some point and try over and over again. Like there will not be a signal coming from your body that says, okay, now your block is over, you can now go back to the document and keep writing. No, you still have to try continuing over and over again. If you just wait and completely stop, then you take the risk of never starting again, never continuing again. I know that a friend of mine who I've been knowing for quite a lot of time also started writing a book, like, I don't know, 6 or 7 years ago, and at some point he was like, he finished the script and started writing, and then he was like, oh, I can't continue right now. Then he took a break, but this break has actually never stopped up until today. So this break has now lasted for like 4 or 5 years. So don't do it like that. If you take a break, if that's your solution to deal with such a block, then you really need to continue, start trying again over and over again. But in my opinion, taking a break is not the best option. Sometimes, sadly, as I said a couple of times now, sometimes there is no other way. If none of your strategies works out, you really just need to take a break. And that's a bad thing, especially if you have some kind of rhythm of releasing books. Like I have a rhythm of releasing Backfire once every 6 months, roundabout. And if I would have such a block break for over a year now, then I would be in trouble. I have written lots of Backfire in advance. So if I would have to take a break for half a year now, or maybe even a whole year, it would not break my neck. I could still continue with releases. But it would be, well, it would kill off this advantage that I have right now, so that I have written in advance. And that's a big advantage because it takes away pressure. Because once you have pressure writing, you probably won't get off your block. And this is also my second hint and second very important thing, that is to never allow stress to happen. If you are writing books, for example, or other kinds of creative texts, then you need to do this because you want to. You need to put all your heart and passion into it. Readers will notice when you have not done so. If you have written because you had to. If you pressure yourself, your results won't be good, or there won't be any results at all. And yeah, people notice that, and also you do. If you have a look over your text a year later, you will probably hate yourself for doing that. And yeah, putting yourself under pressure for writing, yeah, it just will kill your results. It will not make them good. It will not make it better. And you will be thankful for taking a break. Like you will thank yourself a lot. But now these are like very, very general things. I wanna speak about some more specific strategies. And I have to say that I am not a master of fighting off blockades like that, which is why I also wanted to hear about your ways of dealing with that. But I think there are two specific ways of winning these situations that are, yeah, quite specific and could actually be considered strategies. With which am I going to start? Okay, let me start with the switcher. Let's call it like that. I think this is a very obvious one, but it does not work for everyone. I know that it doesn't work for everyone, and I know that some people also don't want to make use of that strategy, but to me it is a very good one. It helps a lot, and this is just switching between projects. Sometimes when you are writing your script, for example, if I was writing the script of Backfire Voices of Violence and I knew I still had about 1.5 years until it has to be finished, so I can, I don't have to pressure myself. I can take some time, but I don't want to make a whole writing break. Then I just switch between projects. I always have 3 projects, 3 scripts that I'm writing at the same time. One of them is always Backfire. I am constantly writing Backfire because it is an ongoing story, long run series, so it's always there. But I'm also writing other novels that are, well, more like classic novels, more like those couple of 100 pages novels, bigger ones, standalone novels. These, of course, take much more time to finish, and unlike Backfire, I could not just, I cannot write them down as quickly. Because the whole writing style, the whole structure, and everything is completely different. Writing a novel like the one that will be my next release, I will talk about that in another video. Writing that is a completely different experience than writing Backfire. It's just completely different, and also topic-wise. So not just the way of writing it, not just the technical things, but also, of course, the content. So when I have trouble writing or continuing writing, for example, Backfire, then I just switch to another project. I know I still have a second and a third script, so I open those documents on my computer or take the respective part in my notebook and just kick Backfire out of my head for a couple of days, maybe a couple of weeks, maybe a couple of months, and completely focus on another project. And when I encounter a block there as well, then I could still switch to my third project or switch back to Backfire. So I always have this triangle of projects where I could constantly switch in between. Because at least to me, a block is never because of, I don't know, the lack of creativity, the lack of ideas, but it's sometimes, it's always like connected to the content. If I am having problems, like if I have two story ideas, I know what's happening right now, I know what has to happen next, but I just can't connect these points. This is trouble that I have had lots of times, actually, and I think it's the biggest problem I have because it happens constantly. And since it's not really having problems with writing in general, but with specific situations, I go to another project, keep writing there, and expanding my ways of creativity again, or just how to explain that? Well, whenever I do that and I return to Backfire, it works again. I find solutions for the problems that I had before because I was writing somewhere else with another style, with other techniques and so on. And when I come back to it, I have a whole different view on the problematic situation and mostly find a way of dealing with the problem then. There is, however, another strategy that I use quite often. One that is also, I think, it is very specific, but more general about these blocks. Because also, I sometimes have the situation where I have a creative block, but then this is not about a situation where I don't really know how to continue, but it really is about whatever I do, whatever project I'm working on, I just cannot find a way to make my head keep writing. I just get stuck wherever I keep going. And while some years ago, like a decade ago, I would have still chosen to take a break, maybe a longer break, I now instead have found a strategy, a solution that helps without taking a break. Sorry, I think you might hear that I'm a little tired today. I can't really sort my thoughts, but I was feeling like capturing a podcast anyways. Sorry, I had some stressful days and couldn't really catch enough sleep. Yeah, but let's get back to the topic. There is a strategy of dealing with the writer's block that I believe helps everybody who writes. There's just one big restriction, and that is that you either need a notebook like a laptop, a portable computer, so to say, or you have to be able to write down your notes on, well, actual paper. I know that some people cannot do that. Like, I don't know why, but I know that there are people out there, lots of people out there, who cannot write down their thoughts, their ideas, for example, for books on actual paper. They need a computer, they need a keyboard for that. Actually, for me, it's exactly the other way around. I can write the book, of course, on my computer. Like, I need to do that, the document that gets printed in the end. But I can only write down my ideas and sketches on either paper or like a magnetic whiteboard. But I could never write down ideas, thoughts, and notes on a Word document. That doesn't work for me at all. So my chair is making loud noises, sorry. So yeah, the restriction for that strategy is that you need to be able to either write down your thoughts on paper or have a portable computer. Because the strategy that works best for me is getting out of your comfort zone, or at least getting out of your common writing zone. So if, for example, you have a flat somewhere or a house and you have your computer there and your desk, and you are always writing on your desk or on your kitchen table or whatever. Maybe there are 2 or 3 spots in your room or in your flat or in your house where you write, but it's always the same spots. And if that's the case, get out of there. If you encounter a block, a writer's block, get out of that zone. I realized how much that works when I was young still, like a decade ago, when I had my first writer's blocks. I was in my parents' home and I couldn't keep writing. And then I was leaving the house and going into the woods. And in the woods, I sat down somewhere, either on the ground or on a chopped tree or whatever, and had my paper notebook there, and just kept writing there, and it worked. Or sometimes I was visiting my sister. My sister lives in a completely different city far away, and her flat has like, how is it called, a rooftop. So not a balcony, but a rooftop. What is that called in English? Let me look that up. It's called a roof deck or a roof terrace, right? And I visit her and sit down there and keep writing. Or I go to, to the lake. Lots and lots of time, especially in the past few 2 to 3 years, when I encountered a block, I just hopped on my bike, went out of the city, maybe took me an hour to the lake, and sat down at the lake with my paper notebook and kept writing there. And it always worked. Or sometimes I just had to hop the train and go for a 4 hours train ride just to write and then return. And that's expensive, but it works, and I sometimes need that. And that is my most common strategy of dealing with the writer's block, and my biggest recommendation for all of you who are writing as well and encountering such things: getting out of your zone. And this is also a general recommendation that I want to give you for your life. Getting out of your comfort zone is, as soon as you get used to it, a very, very nice experience that enhances your life on a million levels. Expand your minds, expand your interests, expand your comfort zone, expand your contacts, your hobbies, everything. Your life, sadly, is not very long, and it's too short to just keep on doing the same things over and over again. So this life offers billions of opportunities, options, nice things, even things you might think are not nice right now. That might change if you get out of your comfort zone. Just a general hint for you all. And also, something very, very different. What I can recommend to all of you is force yourself to liking food. Just a quick discourse. What I think is very funny is how you can manipulate your own body. The human body can get used to like everything, and you can manipulate it in so many ways. Especially if you force your body getting used to something without breaking it. Now, I don't mean forcing yourself to getting used to not having much sleep or not eating anything or whatever. But for example, I always hated asparagus and mustard. Not together, but separate, just two examples. I always hated these things until at some point in time, this must have been like 3 or 4 years ago, I forced myself to like it by eating it every day, twice a day, with every meal. Like whatever I was cooking, I always put mustard next to it. Whatever I was cooking, at another point in time, I was putting asparagus to it. And after doing that for 1 week or 2 weeks straight, having it always there while I was actually disliking the taste, all of a sudden I liked it. And nowadays I can say that I like mustard and asparagus, even though I hated it like 3 or 4 years ago. Okay, but that was a completely different topic. Sorry for that randomness. It looks like a thunderstorm is going to start outside, which is great because my room is extremely hot at the moment. Bad air inside here, and I'm really looking forward to getting some fresh air by a thunderstorm. And I really need to get some sleep. So I think I will already stop the podcast here because I'm getting so tired right now. I need a cup of coffee. That it would be useless to continue babbling. I'm really sorry for being that tired. It will be better in the next episode. And speaking of next episode, once again, there are 2 things that I want to know from you. And I would love to read about that in the comics, in the comments. First is, what are your strategies of dealing with the writer's block? And second is, what else do you want me to speak about in these podcasts? I still have some topics in my mind, lots of them actually, but I don't really know what you want to hear. Like I always think about what I think you might like or think what might be interesting or what I just want to talk about. But I need a little more feedback on what you want to know, what you want to hear, what you want to listen to in such a podcast called the Being an Author series. It does not always have to be about the writing processes or publishing processes. Not always have to be technical stuff like that. Just anything that is connected to these topics in the wide sense. Just let me know in the comments. And I wanted to say comics again. That is wrong. Okay, I need a cup of coffee. Have a nice day. Read you all soon.